This episode is sponsored by Roundel. Start the new year with media plans built with Roundel, Target's retail media business. Roundel connects brands with 165 million plus Target guests through data driven strategies and tailored partnerships that deliver measurable results. Whether you're elevating your brand, expanding reach, or driving growth, Roundel helps your message show up in moments of discovery and joy. Because at Roundel, joy is good for business. Learn more at roundel.com.
Hi, everybody. It's Natalie Zafat, contributing editor at Ad Age, and welcome to a very special edition of the Marketer's Brief podcast. Today, we are joined by Matt Drzewicki, Senior Vice President and GM at Roundel, Target's retail media network. We'll be exploring how the most effective retail media strategies are shifting from high-frequency tactics to high-value, guest-centric experiences, powered by insight, creativity, and responsible AI. Now, let's get into it. Matt, I think you're just getting back from CES, where, of course, retail media, AI, and commerce were everywhere. What stood out to you from the conversations you were having across the industry?
Yep, just back hitting the ground running January 5th at CES. Always a good way to start the year in Las Vegas. I think for me, I love CES, and what stood out to me this year was really three key themes that kept coming up and how interconnected they are. First, it's certainly AI, but not as a buzzword, but as a real enabler of better shopping experiences and better business outcomes. So brands, retailers moving beyond experimentation and into actual use cases. I think second is the creator economy and social commerce. Creators are increasingly becoming the voice of brands, influencing discovery and trust well before a shopper ever enters any sort of retail environment. And so I think that shift is forcing our industry to think differently about storytelling, commerce, and media and how those things work together. And then third, first party data measurement, specifically how data collaboration, clean rooms, and more advanced measurement frameworks are helping brands understand impact of these signals. It's not just about exposure or clicks. It's also why we just recently launched our new Measuring What Matters playbook to clearly define how brands should think about impact across discovery, consideration, and conversion, not just about surface level metrics. And so lots of conversation, certainly industry still about scale, but what the themes really point to is this shift in how value gets created. And so it's about AI helping us be smarter, more intentional, creators shaping trust and discovery early in the journey, and then first party data and measurement giving us confidence to understand what's actually working.
I'm hearing you use a lot of really important words like impact and trust and intention. And I want to narrow in on
Yeah.
that briefly. A lot of what I think we've heard historically in retail media is about scale and frequency, but Target and Roundel sort of have this longstanding topic about connection. I wonder what's driving that shift and how should brand marketers be thinking differently about what success looks like today?
We start with connection because of our relationship with the target guest. It is really our most valuable asset, and we think of her as more than a shopper. She is someone who trusts Target to help her navigate everyday decisions, discover new brands, and make really confident choices across channels. We know that that relationship that Target has with its guest is quite frankly unique in the industry that we're in from a retail perspective. And so, for a long time, right, it's about scale, frequency, or the right metrics. Especially too, when we think about the retail media ecosystem, we were still proving our value. Brands needed reach and we needed to demonstrate demand as a retailer. But, as we get more established and more mature, expectations start to change. And so this is what's really driving this shift in guest behavior as we refer to our shopper and the expectations. We see our shopper as this quintessential omni-channel shopper who is moving seamlessly between the app, our store, discovery off of our platforms, certainly social being a part of that. And that's all within the same journey. I think recently, as we kick off the year here, one of our greatest, I would say, signals of trust is how guests are turning to Target in moments like New Year, New You. And so we have our guests talking to us and telling us that the majority of them are saying that wellness is a year-round priority. It's not just about, New Year, New You, or the start of not just a seasonal focus. And so this isn't just about a one-time purchase as she starts the year. They're looking for support, discovery, and consistency over time. And so when we see that intent signal or that level of intent and trust, it really changes how we think about how we engage with that shopper from a relevant standpoint, from a frequency standpoint, and really the role that we at Target play. And so it's less about showing up everywhere and more about showing up meaningfully in certain moments. So it's today I feel like it looks less like volume and more like relevance is how we're thinking about it. And we're seeing as brands take that approach, you see better returns because that relevance tends to perform better than just continuously serving the same ad to that guest.
Matt, I'm still thinking about something you said a moment ago, which is that two-thirds of folks have bought something from someone they have never met, someone they follow on the internet. And I'm certainly a part of that group. The shopper journey obviously is more fluid than ever with discovery, like the one we just discussed,
Yeah.
happening across platforms well before someone actually engages with a retailer. How is this changing the way Roundel approaches personalization and measurement and even partnerships with brands and agencies?
Well, so we pay attention a lot to, as you would expect, to the trends as well as just the conversations that we're having with our own brands. And we know, whether it's eMarketer as a source or just in conversations, we know that off of our own platform, ad spending is going to more than double over the course of the next 4 years. And it really makes total sense because we're meeting that guest where she is. And again, recognizing that the journey happens, certainly off of our platform. And it's also an area where we at Roundel and Target have over indexed because our guest again is consistently showing that she is, as I mentioned, that quintessential omni-channel shopper. And so from a personalization standpoint to your question, it means for us going beyond basic targeting and focusing on intent mindset. Right. And so when we think about our first party data, our insights around our guests, it helps us understand how the guest actually shops, how she plans, how she discovers. So it's not just about what they buy, but that mindset and intent across these different moments, which allows us to personalize and help, quite frankly, advertising be more helpful instead of interrupting their day, if you will. I think on measurement, we talked about this, these fluid journeys that the consumer is going on demands much more accountable frameworks. The brands that we are working with, as they should, they want to understand things like incrementality, new guest growth, not just surface level media metrics. And so we have invested heavily in closed loop measurement and methodologies that reflect real behavior so that these brands can actually see the outcomes when they make an investment with us. Video is a good example as well as in terms of where people are spending time. About 92% of target guests are watching content on YouTube. That's actually a 24% higher than the general US population. And so when we look at offsite channels like YouTube and video, they're really powerful for discovery, but you really need to help better understand if those exposures actually translate into real purchases. And so, right again, that is part of the value prop and that closed loop measurement that we really see as critically important when we're talking about working with these offsite platforms is really being able to deeply understand that exposure and interaction. What does it actually lead to in terms of real life business outcomes? And so that's where partnerships come to play. They really matter. Nobody has the full picture. I spent over a decade at Google. Google has a certain picture and view of a user from an advertising perspective. We, as a retailer at Target, have a view. All of these different platforms have a different view of the user. And so when we work closely with brands and agencies and platforms, we want to really align on goals from the beginning of campaign development because that collaboration is what allows the personalization and measurement to scale. And so expectations continue to rise from our brand partners as they should. And so proof that these connected strategies across all of these different platforms actually performing is critical. Lots of focus on incrementality as they should. And so again, they want to know not just if something worked, but how much it actually moved the business.
We're going to take a quick break with a word from our sponsor.
This episode is sponsored by Roundel. Start the new year with media plans built with Roundel, Target's retail media business. Roundel connects brands with 165 million plus Target guests through data-driven strategies and tailored partnerships that deliver measurable results. Whether you're elevating your brand, expanding reach, or driving growth, Roundel helps your message show up in moments of discovery and joy. Because at Roundel, joy is good for business. Learn more at roundel.com.
And we're back. Matt, you recently introduced Precision Plus, which brings together Target's first-party data with partner optimization models. What are you learning so far, and how is AI helping brands invest more efficiently while still delivering stronger and more meaningful storytelling across the on-site and off-site channels?
Precision Plus is something that we are really excited about from an innovation standpoint, which really at the highest level curates offsite media through the lens of a marketer's objective versus selecting an individual tech platform. So think goals around awareness, consideration, and conversion versus saying, I want to buy product offering X from tech partner Y. And so this is really in direct response to the trends we've spoken to thus far in our conversation, Natalie, and something our brand partners have been asking for in terms of both performance on media as well as transparency. And so what we're learning so far is when you bring our guest insight at Target together with brands and their campaign objectives, along with the sophistication of tech partners like Google and Meta, Pinterest, TikTok, the Trade Desk, and others, their native AI optimization. You bring that all together in one connected system, performance improves, brands gain confidence in what and how they're investing. And Precision Plus is really the proof point that this is a much more intentional journey-based approach in terms of all of these different off-platform, medias working together. And so from a performance standpoint, early results are very encouraging, meaningful efficiency gains across the funnel, which includes lower CPCs and CPMs, both in mid and upper funnel activity, as well as just really stronger returns at conversion. So we're seeing 50% lower CPMs on awareness-driven campaigns, 84% lower CPCs, and 4x higher click-through rates in consideration-based campaigns, and then 63% higher ROAS on conversion-based campaigns. So the results are great. We're really proud of those. But I think what's more important is the why behind why it's happening. And that, again, really comes back to pairing our first-party guest insights with those partner optimization models. We're optimizing against real commerce behavior, not any sort of proxy signals that we might get elsewhere. This is actual real target data and allows them to be more intentional in terms of where and how they show up from a media perspective. We've recently done some great work along these lines with Aura. I don't know, Natalie, if you're an Aura user from a ring standpoint. I'll be honest, I use a different brand of health band, but my wife is a wildly loyal Aura ring user and is getting me working very hard to get me to convert. But what has made this partnership effective isn't just about an amazing product that Aura has or the beautiful creative, but actually how intentionally the media that we've built with them was sequenced around guest behavior. And so early on, it's about discovery and consideration playing a much bigger role as guests and consumers learned about the Aura Ring product and its value. And then as you start seeing intent increasing, especially during, key gifting moments, conversion activities starts to become concentrated where guests were actually ready to buy. We saw that nearly half of Aura's sales at Target happened during November and December of last year, which just shows how critical it is to align media to those high intent moments. And it's especially telling this omni-channel journey and what that looked like with guests really moving seamlessly between digital discovery and physical fulfillment at Target. And so Precision Plus is at the center of this and really helping connect those behaviors across channels, which led to a nearly 2x increase in influence sales compared to non-Precision Plus campaigns. And so the results, I would say somewhat speak for themselves, but so does their VP of Global Retail, Jeremiah Linder, who shared recently that they have since tripled their investment in Roundel because of the confidence they now have in what's driving the impact and that fidelity in terms of bringing all of those great data sets together, as I had mentioned previously, between Target and our insights, again, them as a brand and what they're trying to accomplish, as well as the power of our tech partners. So it's that clarity that is I think really, really, really valuable. So yes, it's about AI playing a role, but it's becoming less about the headline and is more about the actual business outcomes and the value that it is driving for brands of all kinds, certainly including Aura.
It's a great case study. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I'd like to maybe pivot to a challenge. Perhaps this idea that signal loss and fragmentation is, of course, continuing to accelerate. And what should marketers be prioritizing right now if they want their retail media strategists to drive those real and measurable business outcomes that you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, from where we set in our request, if you will, or our thoughts, it's really about making the complex as simple as possible, right? And that's a bit cliched, but it's using tools, tech, partners like Roundel to help enable that. And we see it in three key areas as we look to this year and beyond. First, it really starts anchoring with strategies and trusted first party audience insights. And so it's about understanding how real people actually shop and discover and decide across channels. So again, designing that media around the guest journey the way that Aura did, instead of thinking about individual placements or individual platforms, helps make everything much more intentional. I think second, we see the role of storytelling and media as critical in that full funnel, always on shopper journey. Rather than us just trying to show up everywhere, we want to help brands, focus on these moments that matter the most, delivering content that's relevant, it's timed well, and aligned to that intent, both on our own platform with Target.com and the app, as well as off-platform environments, as we've talked about. Really helps bring that total story together. And finally, we believe that partnership is critical. I've mentioned a number of times here as you and I have been chatting, Natalie, around the role that we play at Target and Roundel in terms of what we bring to the table, what our brand partners bring to the table, and then what our off-platform partners and tech partners bring to the table. We want to make sure we do that because we there is so much fragmentation. We want to make sure that we don't lose any sort of signal loss, and there's not a single one company that can solve that. And so it just comes down to, having a clear understanding of how to measure impact across discovery, consideration, and conversion. So our brands actually know what's driving growth. And so, those brands who are working with us and who are enabling Precision Plus help deliver, what we believe is a pretty strong growth engine for brands that they can invest in with confidence and scale over time.
That is all the time we have for today. Matt, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks to everyone who tuned in today. Be sure to subscribe to the Marketer's Brief podcast on your favorite platform. We will keep it brief, or at least short enough for you to finish before your next meeting. Thanks again for tuning in.
Marketer's Brief listeners get $40 off an adage.com subscription. Sharpen your marketing edge and visit adage.com/brief for your discount.